So welcome back painting cycling, spring classic season still. And this is Gent-Wevelgem. So a bit of cobbles, a bit of climbing, a little bit of everything in this race. Considered a spinner's race. I hadn't realized that one of my favorite riders, Peter Sagan, has won it 3 times. Nobody has won it 4, and it was up until the last climb he was looking really good, but there's a vicious and famous climb called the Kemmelberg, and I know I've painted riders attacking that climb in the past, and oh, scary descent too, but he got dropped off the pace on that one and sort of gave pale to his chances for setting a record of winning this race. It seems like all these records held by Eddie Merckx are being threatened. That was a big thing, whether during the Tour last year, that if was Mark Cavendish going to finally break Merckx's stage win record. I did like Merckx kind of going, well, you know, I was racing to win, not racing to win stages, but to win the Tour overall. Said, had I been winning, just racing to win stages. But he was also really sweet. But Cavendish was only able to tie the record, not beat it, although there was a chance for a little poetry for Cavendish to actually break the record if he had, and would have happened had he won the sprint on the Champs-Élysées. And certainly if you're going to set a record in the Tour de France, on the Champs is the place to do it. But it didn't happen, and now it will remain to be seen if he's racing the Tour this year. It's not a foregone conclusion, because the team has to look at, yeah, it'd be great if, you know, he could set a record, etc., but they also want to win the race, and that off depends on the, you know, you got to take the best riders to the race, and if Cav isn't there, form-wise, and they think another spinner can do better, then that's who will be there, regardless of any records possibilities. So, this is a chance. So, Greg Van Avermaet is here, rider I've always enjoyed watching. And this group has just sort of pushed the pace on the flat after that Kemmelberg, and seems to be opening a gap. Actually, you can see Stefan Kung, I'm pretty sure, and Avermaet looking back to see just what's happening behind. In just a moment, I'll start that happening behind part. A few other riders tagging onto this little escapee group. Looks like AG2R has managed to get 2 riders into this group. The one I'm drawing right now, just tagging onto the back. And back here is the main peloton that they have escaped from. So we're in the extreme western section of Belgium, or Flanders fields. A lot of farm activity here. very flat except for this Kemmelberg climb and just a few other hillocks. It was interesting, I noticed when they were about to go up one of these climbs, there were people in a ski lift chairs going over the race. It was kind of like, okay, I didn't think the hills were that big to actually have a ski. We'll call this checking their progress. As you can see, I first sketch everything out with a permanent pen. This one is a Sharpie. Because if I was trying to actually use real ink, there'd be such a waiting time for it to dry that these things would take forever to create, and then thus. So I like to warm, and I know I've talked about this in the past, but I like to go warm to cool. And so that helps keep the colors clean, because one of the things that you need to be aware of, particularly with watercolors, but any paint, is of course you're mixing and what I call polluting of colors. So if you get try to get mixed cool and warm together, you can end up with this mud pretty quickly. Complementary colors, of course, will make a gray mud pretty quickly. So you just want to be aware of your color usage, how you're laying things in, sort of that, whoops, looks like I got a hair there. There we go. So now just laying in the flesh tones, and always a little. The sport is, it's starting to get more diversity into it, but it's a very, I hesitate to say white sport, but let's be real, it is. Although it's very interesting to see Germain, a very excellent sprinter who rides from Eritrea. So it's sort of one of those things, is like, flesh tones, of course, only mean, white person flesh tone. So I really should try to figure out another way to say what I mean when I use the word flesh tone. But anyway, so peach color, warm. So I lay that in, also a lighter color. So now working back through, adding the reds in. And then I'll switch over to the cool colors in just a moment. Just making sure I got all the red pops I want. So this is, the thing about painting the race, and I paint these, relatively live, although this particular streaming service, I can't pause live. So I have to wait until the rebroadcast starts. So that's why I say relatively live. So now I'm going to lay in some shadows on these white jerseys. So you can see I grabbed blue to do that. Just helps. I think it gives a much more realistic shadow to the white. If you think about it, shadows aren't. They're certainly not black, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I never use a black. I find it such a deadening color. And so you may notice that I'm really not using my left hand at all. I've had to have surgery. Part of the reason I have time to paint all this artwork, bike races, is that I'm out of work right now until this surgery heals. So if you have to have rotator cuff surgery, make sure you got something lined up that you can do with just one hand, because it's a long recovery. So now just laying in. So this Stefan Kuhn, while he is Swiss, rides for this French team, Groupama-FDJ, and their kit resembles the French flag. So again, just working my way through the colors. So now I'm going to, because I've done the blue, I'm going to shift to the green of the landscape as we start to lay in. Sorry, I'm spinning them over here, just figuring out where exactly is Ryder and where is Environ. So, and then now we'll get a, so that right at the edge of the road is quite bright green. And then it's a little more sort of odd, almost olive green in the field behind. So you notice went over the tree in the painting there because, you know, the color I'm going to use, the darker color for the tree, will easily cover the tree tone. So now working through the hillock. Of course, they call them bergs. So the climb they did was named after the town. So, of course, the town is Kimmel. They've just come out of, and so, of course, the Kimmelberg. This is the climb, so I want to get that a little darker. So mixing a little of this dark, it's like a Payne's gray. It's a deep green. I might call it a forest green, only because I'm using it to paint a forest. Let's see, so the tones are varied, and then we have the barns here, which I'll think about in a minute, but I'm going to move on to the tree. So taking that same color I just used, adding a little sienna to it, laying these trees in the background. And of course, you know, it's still early spring. Colder even in Flanders than it is here. Now, because I have this brown already mixed, the thing about AG2R is their kit. People always, I know so many people who dislike the fact that they wear brown shorts. I don't know if that's a scatological thing or what, but people seem to get upset about their brown shorts for some reason. I don't know. I've always liked it. I liked the kit better when it was AG2R La Mondiale, and they had just a had this little blue and brown pattern. They've had some interesting kits over the years. Kit meaning racing uniform. We get a little more branch color into these trees. So that red I just made was sort of dirty red. And I'm taking some of the green to get this old barn roof color. Now I want to come back and build this black. So the black is this the oxine purple tone mixed with that dark green I was talking about earlier. About equal portions, and that gives me my black tone. Realize I've got some more. Kind of missed this rider back here, missed his legs. I do frequently use this cyclist looking back image. It just makes a little more dynamic image. That's one of the other things, you know, as you're building the painting, and even in this case, as I'm looking to what I'm going to paint and what's going to make an interesting painting, because while this is talking about the story of the race and what's going on, you know, when you take this and hang it on your wall, hopefully somebody will do that, you know, the painting needs to stand on its own, needs to be an interesting image. So you try to build an attractive image above and beyond the story of the race. And now, so everything's moving this way in a nice contrapposto, a sort of a redirection of energy, or the shadows from these riders as they're coming along. It just builds a nicer image, gives you a little something else to see, and that sort of balances the action. I'm going to come back here and grab a flesh tone and get these other legs, or indication of legs. And then the last step is get that last little bit of sidewalk. And this is these slabs of cement that are really scary. So like this line right here is nicknamed the Valley of Death because it can be a very wide gap in the cement. And as you're riding along, particularly when you're packed into a tight bunch, you may not see, and that will eat a wheel. I had that experience, although it was a tram track in Germany and Berlin. I went down and had a pretty spectacular wreck. Cut my ear in half. So anyway, that's the piece for today. Gives you an idea of where I'm going. I just see I left out some black shorts. So be sure to give us a like, share it. I'd love it if you would. Let other people know what I'm doing. And of course, all this work can be seen either through the blog at theartofcycling.blogspot.com, and there you'll find a direct link back to my website where you can purchase each particular painting. Just coming back here and giving a little more indication to the trees. And of course, you know, appreciate the follow as well. Helps build, lets more people see the work. So thank you so much for taking the time to look. And we'll check back with you with the next race next week. Thanks again.